Mm.
Coming to you live from deep within a rainy and muddy and still not very summery radioactive wasteland. We are the survivors of the alt-right Keck apocalypse, the few, the brave, the bitchy, once more wading into battle against the Roma hordes, the froggy lobster hordes, the currently relevant
Roma
hordes.
army.
The Roma,
Roma
army.
army.
I don't want to wade into battle against them. Maybe just a slight correction. Anyway, this is why men's rights didn't exist before Roma, plus gamified dating, ? Rantzerker number 216. So the first topic we're going to address the assertion that men's rights activism and men's issues advocacy did not exist before Roma did it.
Or maybe that women's advocacy.
Women's
men.
advocacy did not exist before Roma started to do said advocacy. So we're going to address that. And then after that, we are going to cover a topic that Brian suggested. So why don't you, I'll put you on the spot here, Brian. Tell us about that topic, why you want to bring it up, why you want us to discuss it, and all the good stuff, all the juicy details.
Well, okay. I saw this video. It was just like while I was doing some house stuff around here. Chris Williamson was speaking to a man named Jonathan Haidt. And they were, the video is called The Shocking Difference Between How Boys and Girls Use Technology. And I thought it was kind of interesting because it was essentially discussing the way that men and women, young teenagers mostly, are experiencing the world through their online interactions. And it is exactly as I had said in the past, where I said that social media is essentially Call of Duty for girls. So it, like they use social media to compete, to dominate each other,
to wage war.
Yeah, to wage war, exactly. And boys, they play war in video games. And Jonathan Haidt talks about how boys use video games as a socializing tool. And that was, particularly interesting to me because I am a gamer, but also because of all this Gamergate 2 stuff going on. So I thought it would be, and I thought it was just interesting. And Allison was asking me for, my thoughts on, I guess, some other stuff we could talk about. So.
All right.
That's it. Allison, you're muted. Why are you muted?
I asked, that was not intentional.
Oh, you did that on, okay.
No, I didn't do it on purpose. I did accidentally, but what I was saying is I suggested a secondary topic because I don't think Roma is going to take all of 2 hours to respond to. I don't know. It might take 2 hours. Who knows? With me and Karen talking, you never know. But
you never know. But
so at any point during the show, if you would like to send us a message, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. We get the full benefit of whatever funds you send, and you get the benefit of sending that comment not through YouTube's comment thresher system. So once again, feedthebadger.com/justthetip to send us comments. And we also have our monthly fundraiser open. It's at feedthebadger.com/support. We have about $575 left. So if you're, and about 3 days. Yeah, 3 days left to go. So please do help us out. $5, $10, every bit helps. And I'll do shout outs to anybody who supports during the show. So once again, that's feedthebadger.com/support to make sure we can keep bringing you this content, and feedthebadger.com/justthetip to send us a tip and a comment. So shall we just roll film?
All right. So this is from Twitter. It was shared with us by Paul Johnson. And it is a TikTok video by Chloe Roma. Chloe Roma has been, she's basically like a men's issues advocate that uses short videos and like very, punchy stuff to make her points. And she has been doing this for about 5 years, according to her. And well, let's just watch this and see what she says.
So I just got accused by the masses on my TikTok live of being a narcissist because across all my socials I have that I'm the #1 men's rights advocate in the world. And let me explain something to you for those who don't understand. Before I was on social media doing what I do, nobody did it. You had Jordan Peterson telling men to make their beds, and that was contributing towards positive mental health. That's it. So a lot of your favorite advocates, I absolutely crawled through shit so that they could walk and run today. I don't put that on my socials because I'm a narcissist. I put it there so I can show you guys that I know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about.
Do you guys want to respond to that real quick?
No. She knows exactly what she's talking about. 5 years. 5 years. She's paved the way. Right? If she hadn't started doing this 5 years ago, me and Allison would never have started doing it. And Hannah.
Yeah, you started doing it 12 years ago.
And Lauren.
12, 14 years ago. Hannah started doing it. Yeah, 12, 14 years ago, possibly even longer if you include her time with the men's or fathers' rights movement. And I wouldn't have started doing this in the early 2000s. So almost over 20 years ago.
Yeah,
now.
no, it's like literally you need a time machine for these people.
Yeah. So that's like, I mean, just to clarify the points that she's offering. She's saying that before she started 5 years ago,
there was nobody else.
No one else was doing this.
Yeah, no one else would have been able to do it. And
everybody who's doing it now is able to do it because she did the work.
Yeah, she laid the foundation. She
laid the foundation.
The road. She paved the road for all of us to like be able to walk barefoot and not cut our feet up, you know. And
she's not
her
a narcissist.
Beautiful silky road. Yeah, no, this is what I mean. I'm not demanding that anybody bow to me, you know, like I'm some kind of goddess or something like that. Okay, but you could at least, as an individual who came into this late in the game, right? You could at least admit there were people who came before you. Who did she learn any of this from?
No, she just invented it. Like Warren Farrell, the stuff that I've written.
Yeah.
She created Warren Farrell. She molded him from clay and breathed the Holy Spirit into him, and he allowed him to walk into the garden. Yeah.
Sent him back in a time machine, you know, to the 1970s. Like what the hell, right?
You say what you will about Pearl. Say what you will about Pearl. She at the very least acknowledges that people existed in the men's issues advocacy space before she did, and even talks to them.
Oh, she's humble. She's actually quite humble, right? Like, I mean, you can say that she comes across as egotistical when she kind of slaps women down for their bad behavior, right? That she's coming at it from a position of, you know, like, I'm not like that, right? You know, kind of the one good woman syndrome, if you want to put it that way. You could say that maybe she comes across like that. But the only woman, right? And I don't know whether she's talking about just women advocates for men, or whether she's talking about any advocates for men. But regardless of what she's talking about, right? Like you have so many people, you know, leading women for shared parenting and women against paternity fraud and all of these, like these are actual nonprofit or charitable groups, right? That are run by women that are advocating for certain issues for men, fairness in alimony and child support, and eliminating paternity fraud, at least maybe not eliminating it, but at least acknowledging that it's an injustice. Can we please just agree on that? Tricking a man into raising someone else's child by telling him it's his, right? That's not right. And then waiting for him to find out when the kid needs a kidney or like a bone marrow transplant. And it turns out that all 4 of the boys belong to the mailman.
Yeah, and I mean, we've had ladies for shared parenting on Honey Badger Radio. We've talked to them during their initiatives, like the initiatives years and years and years ago. And then what about Erin Pissy? Right?
Yeah.
And her work.
And Janice Fiamengo and her work.
I mean, what is it?
And all of these people
don't exist. And they don't. All just Roma. It's all Roma. Roma did all of the work. She did all the intellectual work.
The men's rights movement was born 5 years ago. What about Cassie J, for fuck's sake?
Yeah. Like, I'm not sure what. I mean, I suppose Roma made the word less stigmatized. Guess you could give her that. Maybe. I'm just not like, what has she added anything except just talking about, like, has she done think pieces? Has she analyzed stuff? Has she presented particular arguments? Or is she just repurposing what everybody else has done and then has the audacity to say that she paved the road for it? Because I don't think that I recall any new ideas coming from Roma. Like, she's just saying the things that other people have said. You know, and fair enough, she's popularizing it. That's, I mean, possibly because the algorithm favors her for some reason, but she's popularizing it. Fair enough. That in of itself is a value. But at the same time, as you wouldn't have the things you say without the people who came before you saying them.
Yeah. Like, well, and thinking about them, right? Like, like people weren't thinking about a fempocalypse, right? I picked apart a couple of ideas and put them together into a thesis, right? As to, you know, why society is actually headed off a cliff and how feminism is kind of pushing us further and further toward that cliff. And we don't want to admit it because that would be criticizing women. And female hypoagency, you gave me that idea, right? With your inflatable femme article, right?
Yeah, it was years ago.
Yeah, it was ages ago, right? And, you know, like, every time I borrow a phrase or an idea from somebody, or, you know, even if I build on top of it, right?
You credit.
Or I always try to give credit to who that was, or to say that this wasn't my idea, right? Like, nobody's going to care. And least of all the guy on Reddit who said it, who I heard it from first, right? He's not going to care whether I credit him or not. And nobody's going to know who he is anyway, right? Because all I know is his username, and he's not particularly well known. But I mean, when somebody says something that clever, right, that, you know, generalities exist, believing that no one is an exception makes you a bigot, believing everyone is an exception makes you an idiot, right? And so when I use that, I'm like, I heard this from just, you know, this very intelligent person online. And, you know, like, you have to pay back and pay forward at the same time. And this kind of idea that she has, that she lives in a like she's floating on a cloud, you know, levitating above the rest of us, and, you know, and she's providing the wisdom that has guided us for, you know,
20 years.
Yeah,
5 years ago.
More, 100 years.
Yeah, because I mean, you could go back even further, right?
E. Belfort Bax, Chin Waitsu, right? All of these, Chin Waitsu's The Anatomy of Female Power, absolutely brilliant read, was out of print. I forget who it was. I think it was John the Other found a copy and scanned it by hand, and put it online. But yeah, no, like, you had all of these thinkers, all the way back, Florence Nightingale, as you were saying this afternoon, Allison.
Yep.
And
well, I mean, if we just restrict it to women, you have let's see, who is you brought up other than
Karen DeCrow, and Sylvia Pankhurst. Sylvia Pankhurst, you know, like, her her mother was Emmeline Pankhurst, who's honored, has a statue in Britain as like the most famous suffragette. And Sylvia broke off from her family when she saw how the suffragettes considered, like, completely disregarded the suffering of men, particularly since it was in the middle of World War One.
Yeah, you were saying she was a nurse, and that's when she started to question.
I think she was a nurse, and she was definitely volunteering in, or
Candy
she was
striper.
helping with the military, helping look after the wounded veterans and stuff like that. And she was just blown away by what she saw, and by the fact that her mother and her sister were not only campaigning for a draft to force men to go to war, but that they were bitching and whining that they didn't have the same rights as the men who were expected to put themselves through this.
Yeah, it's pretty astounding.
Mother Jones too. Mother Jones. She was
an advocate.
She was. Oh no, she was all for, like, because when men were advocates for their own rights, as labor or union advocates, right? They just got their kneecaps broken, right? So she was a huge organizer of pro-union activities, and for not just for working men, but for working children. And she actually did some major publicity stunts, like marching a bunch of women and children from, I think it was Philadelphia, all the way to Washington, D.C., right? And we're going on this march for our men. She mobilized women to fight for their men, to fight for their men's right to have a safe working environment and a fair wage.
Yeah, I mean, on the left, you could look at Mother Jones, but also, and I guess Sylvia Pankhurst was also more of a socialist. But
Pankhurst was a socialist as well, yeah.
Yeah, so, but also the Weather Underground, which I know is pretty contentious. But when they were fighting against the draft, they did do that too. Like, they destroyed draft records to prevent men having to go to war. And I can appreciate them for that and almost nothing else. But there's been, and also all of the female judges in like the 20s who spoke out for alimony reform and against men being expected to breach of promise laws, like men being expected to give women money because they supposedly called off or promised a relationship.
To marry.
Yeah, promise to marry.
Yeah.
Like there's all kinds, and then there's Esther Villner and
Esther Viller.
Yeah, I always put an N in there for some reason. Yeah, and the manipulated man, like and I even put forth Madame Curie with developing the mobile X-ray machines that helped troops in World War One. So she was actually dealing with a men's issue, although I don't think she was political at all. So I don't think she would have.
I don't think she considered it a men's issue. I think she considered it a humanitarian issue.
Yeah, a humanitarian.
Which would necessarily mean that she considered men human beings, which is saying a lot during a war.
Yeah, that's when we want to send men to war to die for our own privileges and benefits and entitlements, we don't really want to regard their suffering as something that they're giving us, but something that they owe us.
Yeah, well, because they're not, if they're humans, they're not on the same level as the ones who are truly human, who are protected by them.
Anyway, This is ridiculous. This is a ridiculous assertion. And if people are calling her a narcissist or an egotist,
I don't think that they're. I don't think they're like too far off. So
well, not based on this information.
Well, this rant. I mean, the fact that she's mad. I mean, she should have used this as a opportunity for some introspection. In terms of how she comes across.
Yeah, but also I think, isn't she getting bodied by Pearl?
they're kind of on the same, like they're very similar. You're talking about like the growth of their channels. I don't think Pearl sees it as a competition.
No,
but
no, I don't.
But
I'm not saying Pearl does.
No, I know. But I mean, like they haven't spoken to each other. Like Roma's not talking to Pearl. She's just kind of like hating on her from a distance. So that's the last time I looked. They're kind of they're not getting along. I don't know.
Well,
Pearl is not really like that involved. She's like doing her own thing, but yeah, Roma's kind of flailing in the background. So
yeah, no, it's like we've been through this a couple of times, right? Where somebody just feels aggrieved that they're, I don't know, they're less successful, less involved, less something. And they've just come out and just, you know, in their own private public space, right? But their own controlled space, their own blog or their own channel or whatever, they've come at us and tried to rip us down. And it's like, where the fuck did that come from?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think this is directed at us. Like, honestly, I don't even think Roma is aware that we exist. I think this is directed at Pearl. This is basically Roma saying, I paved the way for Pearl. I think that, I mean, it requires a little bit of reading between the lines, but again, I don't think she feels threatened by, I don't know, A Voice for Men, NCFM, Honey Badger Radio, even, I guess, the Canadian Association for Quality. I don't think she even is thinking,
because they're not eating into her numbers.
Yeah, we're not. Yeah, like we're not a threat. So we are completely irrelevant in all of this. This is like an argument between, well, a giant and a potentially getting bigger giant. And she's basically, I think she's directing this at Pearl. Like, we're irrelevant in all of this. Even though well, clearly we're irrelevant since she doesn't believe that we exist until 5 years ago. I'm 5 years old. Yeah.
I'm 5 years old, everyone.
My advocacy is only 5 years old.
I can I just, before we get into this, first of all, we do have some super chows and super chats. But I guess what I wonder about is if she's been doing this for 5 years, I don't think it's possible that she doesn't know who we are, or Paul is, or Janice is, or, you know, or even Aaron like guys Pitsy. That are, Aaron Pitsy. Like, I don't see how it's possible she doesn't think that we exist or know we exist. And I'll say this too. I think that there might be some containment going on. Do you guys know what I mean by that? Like, I think I mentioned this yesterday when I was doing a show with you, or maybe I did it in the after show, where I was talking about how Ashley St. Clair was on trigonometry, and we were responding to her video, and it was, you know, oh, the misogyny and the right is, you know, a big problem. And I was talking, I think I might have been talking with the patrons, and I was talking about how what I think is going on with people like Ashley St. Clair and trigonometry and Lauren Southern and Sydney Watson is they know we exist, but there's something about something that we discuss that they're not ready for. And so they pretend like we don't exist, or they exclude those things from the conversation. Do you guys know what I'm saying? It's a kind of maintaining of the status quo or gatekeeping. I think of it as containment. It's like, oh, we're going to talk about these things, but we're going to keep it in here because we don't want to, you know, damage our brand in some way or whatever. And I think that because I had a guest on that Chloe Roma had recommended, she made a video where she was talking about other advocates that were doing good work in her opinion. And of course, our names didn't come up at all. But she mentioned Emily King, the Dadvocate, which I like their videos. They're pretty cool. And then someone named Tin Men, or the Tin Men. And I had Tin Men on my show. And Tin Men, he discusses men's issues, but he does it in like a leftist framework. That's the only way I can put it. It's a leftist framework where it incorporates aspects of intersectionality and feminism into it, but it makes it work or play nice with men's issues, right? which means that it's kind of stuck. It's not going to be able to really make a lot of progress, but it's good for his brand because he was able to get on Chris Williamson. He was able to get on Piers Morgan's show. He was able, he's blowing up. And I was talking to the patrons yesterday, and I said, this is why we're probably never going to get there, because we are not safe for your brand. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's I get it. Like, okay, so you have the Daisy Cousins and the what's the other one from Australia? I think
Sydney Watson.
Sydney Watson.
Oh, okay.
She was Sydney Watson. Yeah. She was from Australia. She lives in the States, but
but you have these people who come at men's issues, come at men's advocacy from a traditionalist perspective, right? Even people like Lauren Southern and stuff like that, they always sort of came at it from a conservative traditionalist perspective. And then you have the ones that come at it from the leftist intersectionalist progressive perspective, right? And those two boxes are legitimate boxes within the Overton window. They're considered, legitimate frameworks in which to shoehorn men's issues.
Yes.
But that's not going to actually help anything. It's not going to get you very far in terms of solving the problems, because the problem is traditionalism and the problem is feminism.
Yes.
Right? And it's the problem is that the horrible two-headed hydra that is the ghastly love child of traditionalism and feminism, right? And so, but every time we unpack things on the traditionalist side, every time we pick it apart and criticize it, we're suddenly persona non grata among that group of people who tackle men's issues in a way that's palatable to traditionalists, and likewise for the progressive stuff, when we attack them and pick apart their ideas and say, well, this isn't good enough, right? You didn't think through this all the way, right? And you're still perpetuating the problem. They're not going to invite us to their party either.
Yeah. Anyway, hold the line to men's issues, because I know I'm not. I don't consider myself conservative. I don't really put myself in a position on the American political spectrum. And I talk about these things, and I know exactly what you're talking about, Karen, because it's the difference is, are you going to talk about men's issues in service of your particular political agenda? And that could be conservatism, it can be leftism, it can be socialism, it can be feminism. Are you going to talk about those things in terms of advancing that agenda? Or are you going to talk about it with its own, that it is its own thing?
Agenda. Its
own agenda, or its own, it's like, and put that first. Do you put men first, or do you put your ideology first? And that's a challenging thing to say to people. And I think part of it is that we are not, by doing that, we're not necessarily identifying the enemies that they want identified. So if we identify intersectionality as having a harm to men in this way, traditionalists might be interested in us, right? But if we say chivalry has a harm to men in this way, then progressives might be interested in us, because we're using men's issues to identify enemies in their mind. But at the end of the day, we're not. We're using men's issues. We're not using men's issues. We're just identifying men's issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like a lot of the emphasis that I think a lot of these parties have is on identifying enemies and wanting to identifying the opposing party as an enemy. Whereas I think ultimately what we're saying is it's on all of us. It's something that we have to change in all of us. It's a blind spot that progressives have. It's a blind spot that conservatives have. It's a blind spot that socialists and I don't know if capitalists, what does even mean capitalism? But, obviously libertarians have this blind spot because it's just cratered. The party's just cratered, and it's like, this is
I warned them. I warned them in Nashua.
Yeah, even Christians, they have this blind spot. And in a lot of cases, their religion is creating around that blind spot, which is men have vulnerabilities, which means women have responsibilities and obligations to their community, to their husbands, their children,
to their fathers, to their sons, to their brothers.
And there is no enemy in this. This is just a dynamic that needs to be fixed. Like, women aren't necessarily the enemy. Maybe they are. I don't know. Maybe we want to go there, but they just.
I don't know. It's looking more and more like.
The party of single women is getting worse and worse, but it's like women are not necessarily the enemy. It's behaviors that are go unaddressed. Yeah, and that's just not great, because what I've noticed is that people like to have enemies, and if you're out there saying no, you just got to fix certain things. There's no enemy here. You just got to take the car into the garage and fix it. Like there's nothing fun about that. It's just maintenance work. And I don't think people are open to it. It's not just that we're controversial. It's that we're not confrontational enough too.
Well, we've also gotten so used to things, right? Like I consider myself a conservative, at least on the like bare bones political spectrum of, like what government should involve itself in. But I think that when we look at it, it's not just that it's maintenance work and it's not glamorous or whatever. It's actually really hard. It's actually really hard because we've become used to, like women especially, have like being a stay-at-home wife and mother these days, right? Like, that's not what my grandmother would have experienced if she'd been lucky enough to be a stay-at-home mother, right? She would have been working 14 hours a day, right? With chapped hands. And so, I mean, like, I think that women's expectations of what their lives should be like have changed because, and their behaviors, right, in response to not getting the things that they want, have like, they used to be contained by one, social and cultural norms, right, and restrictions, and two, just the reality of life, right? You can't go out to a nightclub on a Wednesday night when you're sitting at home with a laundry mangle, wringing out the washing that you washed on your coal stove, right? That's just not something that it's possible to do. You can't live in a selfish way unless you were very, very wealthy back then. You could not live as a woman in a selfish way. You had to work, and you had to be a team with your husband, and you had to have children that you could basically send out the door to run down to the store with a tuppence to buy, a bag of flour or whatever, right? You had to be able to trust your 6-year-old to be able to do that and get home, right? Because you were busy looking after the baby and doing the washing and doing the cooking and all of those things and beating the carpets, and if you were lucky enough to not have dirt floors, right? So like this was, you couldn't be a narcissistic, selfish woman back then unless you were like one of the super wealthy, one of the top 4%,
but even them
5%.
I've read a lot of history. Those women were expected to, in a lot of ways, fight for their families and they were expected to know when they were well served, right? And being able to know when you were well served
meant that you know how to do laundry because you've done it, and you know how to dip candles because you've done it, and you know how to rotate the stock in the pantry because you've done it, right? And you know all of these things because you've done it, and you have all of the keys in the house to all of the larders and the closets and stuff like that because you know where everything is, and you maintain the books, and you maintain the stockpiles of everything, and you look after all of that, and you supervise it all because and you know how to do every task, because if you don't, then you won't know whether your servants are doing it right. So even if you were insanely wealthy, you were still expected to be working full time, just in a managerial role for a larger household,
and also dealing with the politics,
and everything. A Jane of all things, yeah, and also dealing with politics and all of those things, right? And
yeah, okay,
knowing who to invite and who not to. Yeah.
Okay, so shall we get a little bit more? Unless you wanted to say something.
Well, I just wanted to say a couple things. I want to get back to Chloe Roma. So my point being, if you've been doing this for 5 years, I don't think it's possible that you're simply not aware of all of the people who you are literally taking your talking points from. So you are likely just concealing that information and hoping that nobody looks into it. But anyway, I don't know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know. Do you think Chloe Roma knows about people like Paul and Janice and Karen and Allison?
Where's she getting her talking points?
And yeah, where is she getting this? Because with Pearl, we learned that she got a lot of it from Kevin Samuels, and you can see that, and she has confessed as much that she got into it. So there's no shame there because it's an admission and it's fair and it's understandable. So, you know, I'm wondering, because I mean, she's obviously not a fan of Andrew Tate. She talks about him a lot in a bad light. She doesn't like Pearl. She doesn't like Fresh and Fit. And yet she names those people. But all of the talking points she brings up are not those people's talking points. They're the talking points of people that we know. People like Angry Larry. People like Man, Woman, Myth. You know? So, yeah, it'd be nice to know why she wouldn't share that information.
Like, does she bring up like talking points that we've had, or?
Well, yeah,
like
I mean,
Karen, at the very least, yeah, I think Karen.
Yeah, absolutely, like definitely ours.
People
but I'm
just leaving out Karen.
I don't want to put us on a pedestal. I'm just saying it's the same talking points. But
if Roma has actually mentioned me ever, okay, I'm flattered. But this rant kind of puts that to one side, and
yeah. Okay, let's watch.
All right, well, let's do the super chats and then we'll watch some more. Okay,
apologies.
So Zaranx gave us $2. Thank you in super chat, and says it is Chloe Roma. You are like flies to her, which is a Ghostbusters 2 reference. If you guys don't remember that. And then Zaranx gives another $2 and says you give credit by having neck tattoo. For shame. Karen should get a neck tattoo, and then that will definitely get the attention that she deserves. But anyway, let's play more of the video, the rest of it.
You guys want to pretend like men are just so stupid. Like they can't tell when somebody is grifting, saying something just for views or money or attention. I'm 5 years running in this shit and I still trend. I still go viral to this day. You can accuse me of being a narcissist. You can say I only do this for male validation. You can try to discredit me any which way you want. But the reality is that my statistics and my fans and my audience speak for them fucking selves. 2.3 billion impressions on YouTube speak for itself. I don't put that there because I'm a narcissist. I put that there so that you know that I take value and pride in what I do, and I will do it till the day I fucking die. Thank you.
Fans.
Yeah.
I mean,
using that's a weird word. That's a word I've always really disliked.
Yeah, me too. Fans, listeners. That's why I call them listenators.
Well, no, listeners, viewers, subscribers, followers, all of that. Because, but fans is about celebrity.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh God, you're right. I don't think I've ever used the word fans.
I've probably used it a couple of times, but it's, it always tastes bad in my mouth.
Well, I don't even
right?
like audience members because, how many of her fans does she even know? I doubt she even thinks about that. But
well, like your audience gets big enough, you don't know who they are.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't know who all of them are, but you do kind of know when you go through the comments whether they, like, I get the occasional, even now on some of my older videos back when I was still good looking before I hit menopause and a wall, but I still, like I had a few like, will you marry me, and stuff like that, and oh my God, you're beautiful and things like that, but mostly it was just people expressing gratitude that somebody was saying what I said. Like, that was really what it was. Is, thank you for speaking up. Thank you for saying what I've always sort of known, but didn't know how to express or articulate, right? But I always knew there was something off, and you've expressed it perfectly. It just, when I heard you explain it that way, it just clicked and everything just came into focus. And so I know they aren't being like, it's not that I'm some kind of celebrity. I could be any woman. I could be some like fat woman, some even more hideously old woman. Like I could be anyone saying these things, as long as it's a woman, because most of the same people would say if it was a man, I would have clicked away in the first 15 seconds. Right. But if you were a man, but yeah, no, it's like the idea of having fans, and it always made me uncomfortable at conferences when people would come up to me and say, oh, can I take a selfie with you? And oh, I just want to shake your hand and everything. And you do it. And it's nice. Right. And it's not that I hate it, but it always made me a little bit uncomfortable, because I was like, is this a cult of personality? Like, is this turning into something that
for me
more than the issue?
For me, the way that I looked at it is, once you get that level of fame, and this is what I've noticed over and over again, once you get to a certain level of fame where it takes over your life, your exploration sort of ceases, and you're no longer breaking new ground. You're sort of retreading your highlights. And for me, I was always thinking that, oh no, I've got to get deeper. I got to go deeper. There's more to this. There's more layers underneath the layers. And that's sort of what's driven me throughout the years. And just trying to figure out what is at the very, very core of the whole thing. And because of that, I think it reduces the scope of for example, my reach, I suppose. I've noticed that if I do shorts and everything, keep things a little bit simpler and more, I would say, superficial, it reaches a bigger audience. But at the same time, as I'll do that, but my passion lies in trying to get to the very center of things and find the deeper layers. And in order to become someone who it appeals to a really wide audience, you sort of have to give up that process. And I don't know if I'm really want to, if that makes sense, because that's what thrills me is discovering new things. And unfortunately, that means that your scope is narrowed in terms of the people who are even going to just watch you discover new things. And and it's fine. Like when there's a little bit of jealousy over people like Roma and Pearl, but then I thought about it and I'm like, but I don't want to do that work, like popularizing. Yeah. Like, that's not the kind of stuff that really interests me. I mean, I can do it. When I was doing the shorts, it was doing really well. I don't know if I can still pick it up anymore. The YouTube's algorithm might have killed that by now. But when I was doing the shorts, I was doing well. But at the same time, I did them because I was sort of burnt out on really deep thinking, because I had just finished a very complicated novel, or at least the first draft of a very complicated novel. And I was just wanting to do simple stuff. And, you know, and it found an audience, and I feel bad for stopping it. But at the same time, as it was a little bit rarefied for me to just want to take a month off and do stupid shit, you know, stupid sort of shallow, funny shit. And then I wanted to get back into going deep, and you know, people, it's off-putting. And I don't mean to sound like I'm like, oh, you need 1,000 IQ to appreciate me. It's just that, you know, if you're bringing up new stuff, people don't like new stuff. They like their own opinions repeated back to them in many cases.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I could have kept my channel going, and, you know, I've mostly abandoned it, but I could have kept it going, and I could have come up with, I guess, probably a 20-minute essay once a month or something like that, and continued to put out content. But
life,
I just felt like, well, there, you know, there was life things going on in my life, but at the same time, I found other things to dive deep into that just kind of fell into my lap. And, you know, I was already feeling like I had pretty much said all there was to say in terms of the topic of, you know, anti-feminism, men's issues, and things like that. I could probably get into a little bit of a dive into, you know, conservatism and where it goes wrong. But, you know, between COVID and then, you know, the jibby jabs, and then certain things that happen politically and all of that. Like, when I see something off, right, that just doesn't make sense, and I have the ability now to look into it, and I think that it's an important thing, I'm gonna go researching. I'm gonna go spelunking into those rabbit holes, and because I feel like, you know, that needs to come to light, and I want to know what's going on, right? And that's the thing, I want to know what's going on, and I feel like, you know, at least in terms of what the problem is with men, women, culture, and law, and all of those, I'm pretty sure I know what's going on there. So I just got drawn into other things that I wanted to figure out. I wanted to figure them out, and so I did that. And, you know, it's been a very isolated endeavor, right? I haven't really been talking about it a whole lot, except in comment sections and a little bit on X, but it's definitely been, well, I don't want to bum everybody out, so let's just leave it at that.
All right. Well, that's all the Super Chows, so let's get, we finished the video, but I guess we could look at F House Bunny's response video. So, you know, F House Bunny on Twitter made a response. So we can look at her response to it. I thought it was pretty good.
So I just got accused by the masses on my TikTok live of being a narcissist because...
Oh dear. Ernest Balfour Bax began talking about men's rights issues 100 years ago. Then we have Dr. Warren Farrell in the 1970s. We also have Erin Pizzey, who then evolved into the MRM. We then have Paul Elam. We then have the honey badgers. I had to stop and giggle because that was laughable. Karen Strawn, I mean, hello, no competition. And I've listed, and there's more, there's the UK advocates. There's so many that have been here longer than 5 years. I've been here 10 years, 11 years I've been here now, from the fathers to the men's, right? It's laughable. Alison Bushell, Lisa Chamberlain, Belinda Brown. The list is endless. Elizabeth. There's so many eccentric. Oh my God, I could go on and on and on about how many people have been here, but it's not a competition. We don't make it a competition. That's why we're not called narcissists. And on a serious note, it's, as I said, not a competition. It's a serious thing. You're dealing with people's emotions. But are you, though, if you're just sat in front of a camera doing what I'm doing right now? Because the majority, 95% of my time, is not sat doing what I'm doing now. And that I can speak for a lot of us. We're working one-to-one. You might be working through the night with a man that's suicidal. You might be working with a guy that hasn't seen his kids. You are dealing with emotions. And we all, the real hardcore, whether that's you're an author of a book that you're sending out, you're doing it in a way that you're helping others. Sitting and blowing smoke up your own arse is not an MRA.
Oh, that was gorgeous.
I think that pretty much has everything to say. Like,
even it's not a competition thing, because it's not. I've always, and I'm sure you have, Allison. You've always found people, right, who had good ideas, who had maybe a talent that you don't or I don't, or would be welcome, or could get some traction, right? And what do? We try and encourage them, and we try and give them a platform, and we try and help them out, and we try and draw attention to them, right? Because it's not about the competition. It's not about who gets the most views, who has the most subscribers, who gets the most hearts, likes, thumbs up, whatever, right? It's about trying to spread the word, right? It's definitely not about who makes the most money, because anybody could tell you that if you're doing this right, you're probably not making it a whole lot of money.
Well, I mean, Honey Badger Radio is self-sustaining in terms of that. I mean, I don't think we make a hell of a lot.
Everybody in Honey Badger Radio. Okay, how many millionaires do you have?
None.
Yeah.
No, I've been living hand to mouth for the whole 10 years, so this has just been scraping by.
Yeah, you're not really going to make a hell of a lot here doing this. And you're going to risk a lot too.
Yeah, and you're not gonna be able to build a media empire like Ben Shapiro or Glenn Beck or
again, if you're doing it right, there is no specific enemy that you can point to. I mean, you can point to feminism, but feminism really is more like it's a behavior and an attitude than it really is as much a coherent set of beliefs, because there's almost no coherency to it, and it's definitely not in relation to reality. So, I mean, you can point to feminism and feminists, but really it kind of amounts to women wanting to have moral authority over men's own experience. And wanting to dominate them morally. And that can exist without feminism. Feminism is just a very good tool to that end. So, it's a behavior. Again, it's a behavior that you have to call out. And that way of not identifying clear enemies, it doesn't necessarily appeal to people. So if you're doing it right, and if you're keeping it to the advocacy for men, you probably aren't going to get a heck of a lot of attention, because people just don't naturally care about men as much. I mean, there's a certain element of it, maybe there's elements of gynocentrism that are socialized more versus biological more. But ultimately, when you're looking at the statistics, people have a bias against caring about men's issues, and also a bias towards thinking that it's okay to sacrifice men if women ultimately benefit. So you're pushing back against that. And it's easier to just use men's issues in order to push another ideology or another agenda.
Conservatism or traditionalism,
even
feminism.
Feminists recognize that men should be, the whole thing about men expressing their emotions is feminism using so-called men's issues to push their own agenda.
Yeah, no, I mean, feminism admits that patriarchy hurts men too, right? So their enemy is patriarchy, right? And it hurts men too, so men should get on board with feminism. And it's like, oh my fucking god, right? So yeah, no, it's like they only use, and then conservatism says, well, okay, or traditionalism says, okay, well, traditionalism puts like huge burdens on men, but at least they get respect, right? And acknowledgement for that. And that is the case. And that might actually be the best that we're ever going to be able to do, which is probably why it lasted for like 10,000 years. But
well, they're not even offering that anymore. Like,
no, it's not
offering. They're sacrificing that recognition. They're sacrificing that recognition once again to try to benefit women. And like they don't stand by their chops because they don't really understand caring about men. And
they care about fathers and fathers' rights as long as the mother didn't get sick of him and divorce him.
Yeah. And that's the unfortunate part. Like it's like sticking to your guns. I mean, if Roma has stuck to her guns on this, I mean, it's bravo that she's managed to get so much attention while sticking to her guns. I do wonder if there's now a bit more of a market for just, ribbing women, being just
bashing women.
Yeah, like a almost like a gadfly market.
Oh, well, because things have gone so far, Allison. They've gone so far that people are starting to have to acknowledge, right, that women have become a problem, right? As you say, the party of single women, as other people say, liberal women, a lot of people, right, and not men's rights people, a lot of political commentators, YouTubers and stuff, right, that mostly just go by, they're like, liberal women are mentally ill, right? And the stats prove it in terms of diagnoses, having seen a therapist, having been put on a prescription psychiatric medication, right? Like you look at the political spectrum from conservative to liberal, men and women, right? Liberal women, progressive women. The chart goes like this, from conservative men, right, to like liberal women in terms of some kind of indicator of a mental illness, whether it's an official diagnosis or a prescription for antidepressants or anti-anxiety meds or whatever, right? So, and it came back to that question that they asked me on Outsiders in Australia, which is, does feminism make women unhappy, or do unhappy women, seek feminism? And I was like 6 of one, half of the dozen of the other, like a little from column A, a little from column B, because it's like, number one, if you're miserable, you want an explanation for it. And feminism offers an easy explanation, right? If you're depressed or anxious, or, you're having like all kinds of difficulties psychologically and socially, right? Feminism offers you a pat answer. Oh, it's the patriarchy. Right. But then it goes on to feed you and feed your anxiety and your depression, because all it does is tell you that you're right. The entire world is out to get you. That can't be a happy message to go out every morning and face the world with.
Yeah. No, that's
so
true.
It's self-reinforcing. It's a self-reinforced mental illness. And I've seen women who were feminists who actually got out of it because they realized it was making them depressed. It was making them anxious. It was making them paranoid just to believe in it. Just to believe in it. It made them unhappy and dysfunctional. So, this is why I've never been the whole feminism only hurts men kind of person. It hurts women too. It absolutely does. It brainwashes them to think the entire world is out to get them.
And it's a horrible way to live. But
It
let's
is. Oh my!
okay.
He's wearing pants. Oh, he put on pants.
Yeah,
just in case he has to walk behind the camera.
My husband got me this. This little
Pez
dispenser with a Care Bear on it. So it reminds me of my childhood.
Oh.
Yeah, he's I think he yeah, it's very sweet. I
had a friend who used to call me Care Bear in high school.
Because her name is Karen.
Yeah, I get it.
Till I threatened to stab her in the face with a pencil. And then she stopped.
Okay. Did you get the Care Bear so people know what I'm talking about, Brian?
Yeah, I did. I got it. Yep.
Okay, good. Why don't we move on to the second topic?
Yeah, we can do that. I got a Super Chow.
We got a couple Super Chows. Yeah, let's
Super
do that.
Chows. Yeah, let's do those really quick, and then we'll look at the other things. So Astron gave us $5 and says, "You're right. There is a time and place to call followers fans, but during a rant, in this context, she becomes more important than the principles she advocates for." Or do I not understand it correctly? It does seem that way. I don't want to tell people what's going on in her brain, but I don't think it looks very good. My only issue is that, again, she acts as though she invented. You know what? I'll say this to be fair. Okay, Chloe Roma sounds a bit like Rollo. So Rollo Tomasi will go on a stream and he'll tell everybody that he invented everything. Or when what's his name, Anthony Johnson says he's the president of the Manosphere, it's that, and it's like, okay, like you came out of nowhere. I don't know who you are. I'm not impressed. You know, just it's fine. Just demonstrate it, and we'll be okay. But anyway, Richard Bier gives us $5 and says, this is another internet neff to increase viewership just because of the perceived drama between the adversaries and increasing polarization of the audience over the concept of, quote, you can only side with one and not the other, end quote. Perhaps the two of them should just settle the matter with a match of wrestling in a waiting pool of Jello in bikinis. Again,
who'd win?
Yeah, Pearl. She's a big girl.
Pearl is like 6'2" or some shit.
Yeah, and she like plays like volleyball or basketball or something. But the only thing I would say is that the thing is, Richard, I think it's really important that we point out that Pearl's not fighting with anybody. Chloe Roma is picking a fight with her. So like this is important because if anything, but it's not. It's basically everybody else that that has a platform that's comparable in size. So whatever podcast, Fresh and Fit, Andrew Tate, those are the people. If they're small and if they're doing better work or more intense work and they're not, in her like like a threat to her popularity, then they don't get acknowledgement. So, but I think Pearl is like, she sees her as the enemy, and it's purely out of like envy is my guess because I've seen it. But yeah, so Pearl's not looking for that. So it's important before we say it's because that, I guess for me it implies a both sides thing, and it's just not that.
Yeah, no,
Pearl's doing her thing, and that's it. Yeah,
I can't see Pearl caring.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Pearl might bash women in general, and bash even Roma here. But I don't think it would come from a place of my fan base is bigger than your fan base, or even trying to destroy. The vibe I get from Pearl is like, ladies, behave better.
Yeah, for sure.
How about that? So.
All right. So
generally so calm.
Now we'll get into the thing.
The next section.
Yeah, so this is I'm going to play a little bit from the beginning. There's no need for us to get too deep into this. So this is Chris Williamson's channel, Modern Wisdom. He's talking to Jonathan Haidt, and this is a clip from a bigger podcast where they're discussing the ways that boys and girls interact with the internet differently. So
talk to me about the sexed differences in technology. How do boys and girls use technology differently?
Sure. Yeah. So the master variable here, I believe, is a set of
All right, are we supposed to be hearing something?
You guys don't hear it?
No,
Not currently. Nope.
I don't
No?
hear it. Don't see it. Is it a video?
You don't see it
Yeah.
either?
No, I don't see it. No.
No, yeah, that's okay. There we go. You should be able to see it now.
All right, great.
All right. Sorry about that. Okay.
Talk to me about the sexed differences in technology. How do boys and girls use technology differently?
Sure. Yeah. So the master variable here, I believe, is a set of motivations that we've talked about in psychology for 50 years called agency and communion. So everybody has needs for agency, to be an agent, to make things happen. You know, a child knocks over a block tower. It's thrilling. I did that. I caused that to fall. So that's agency. And then communion is connection, being part of a group, being welcomed and embraced and connecting. So everyone has both motives. But on average, boys have stronger agency motives. And when you let boys and girls choose what to do, the boys are going to gravitate more towards games that allow agency. And so fake war is one of the best examples. They want to practice their skills. Boys, I think, are evolutionarily programmed for hunting and war, to enjoy hunting and war. I found this out when I was 29 years old and for the first time in my life played paintball with my buddies. And hunting each other, we were mixed in with other people, but hunting each other in small groups and shooting guns to try to hit each other was the most thrilling thing we'd ever done.
That'll get you. Yeah.
Oh, I'm just pausing there.
Yeah, no. See, this is why I love Jonathan Haidt. It's like, because it's fun because you know you're safe, right? But it's exhilarating because it was what you were born to do. Because if you didn't enjoy those activities as a child, right, doing them in a safe way as a child, you wouldn't want to learn the skills that make you good at doing it as an adult in real life, right, in the real version of things. So and this is why girls really love, for the most part, to play with dolls and stuff like that, because that is their instincts as children are preparing them to learn the skills and do the activities that are required of them when they grow up and have kids. And this is just how it works. And the more parents reinforce those things, like you can reinforce those behaviors and those enjoyable activities and all of that. You can encourage those, your kids to enjoy those things, right? Or you can teach your sons to be ashamed of wanting to play cowboys and Indians or cops and robbers, right? I'm perfect. Again, outliers and exceptions exist. But, to believe that everyone is an outlier or an exception to this makes you an idiot.
Yeah.
Demon Spawn on Reddit.
All right. You want to play some more, or Allison, did you want to say something?
No, I think he's pretty much right. I don't know if he's going to get into the depth of the horror that is women, though, on social media. It seems like he's soft pedaling it so far. Okay, let's find out.
All right.
Yeah. So that was really cool. Like, wow, there's like a room in my heart for being a hunter and a warrior. Like, I didn't really know it was there, but it was. So anyway, boys choose to pursue agency motives. Girls choose to pursue more communion motives. They talk more with each other. As Richard Reeves, this wonderful British man who has this, who's been making the case for boys. Have you had Richard on the show?
Of course. Yeah, he's great.
Of course.
So I mentioned Richard Reeves. I will share this really quick because they are bringing him up. Do you guys know who Richard Reeves is?
Give us a little background there, Brian.
Carrie, you never heard of him?
I don't recognize the name. So
yeah. So well, I'll play a little bit more of the video.
That looks interesting. I'll have to.
Yeah. What are men for? How to solve the education crisis for boys. So he's a male advocate, and he's been
dying. The fall of men.
I see a Tate there. Maybe go down a bit.
He was on Bill
he's
Maher,
on Real
Andrew
Time
Tate,
with
and the
Bill
West's
Maher.
Lost Boy. He was on Real Time with Bill Maher. Why
okay.
American boys are failing at school, right? So why men are hard to help.
Why boys are failing at school and men are losing at life? Well, feminism. Like this is what they were like. Yeah, let's get these.
Well, I don't know
why men are hard to help. Yeah, because men.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think he's trying to explain that. So let's listen to what they say about him a little bit more. I'm just gonna go back a teeny bit, but apparently he's been on Modern Wisdom. This Richard Reeves guy.
Everybody who's listening as a podcast, we were just discussing Richard Reeves, some of the things that Richard Reeves has done videos on. It included, I guess, a discussion of Andrew Tate and the Lost Boys, and also why boys are failing and men are in school and schools and men are failing in life. Well, the thing is that we set out as a society, we saw men's success, and we said that men's success is immoral, and now men are not as successful.
They stole it from women.
Exactly. Like when you say that something is immoral and then you go out of your way to start attacking it, don't turn around and be like, oh, well, why is that disappearing? Well, because you want to get rid of it.
Yeah.
You said that men's success was a result of privilege, and then you set about actively removing it, and now it's disappearing, and you're surprised that you got the outcome that you aimed for. Like,
we tried destroying men and it worked. Now we're all out of ideas.
We're all out of reasons for why that happened. Okay, let's go.
All right, let's play some more.
Been making the case for boys. Have you had Richard on the show?
Of course, yeah, he's great.
Of
he's
course,
coming back on again soon. Yeah, his new initiative, that the Center for Boys and Men,
American Institute for Boys and Men. Yeah,
thank you. That sounds awesome. I'm fully Richard Reeves pilled. I'm on board with all the stuff he's doing.
Me too.
Yeah.
We're all Richard Reeves pilled. Yes.
Yeah.
So Richard points out, girls like to do things face to face. Boys like to do things shoulder to shoulder. Like we're next to each other, but we're doing something.
I've got it.
I need to. Golden pointed that out. Tom Golden.
Yes.
Tom Golden.
Ugh.
Well, that's okay. It's getting out there at least.
Maybe Richard Reeves credited Tom Golden for that bit of wisdom, because the first I'd heard of that, and it made perfect sense, was from Tom Golden. And I was like, of course, men don't want to talk with each other and make themselves vulnerable while looking each other in the eye, right? Because looking someone directly in the eye is either, are we going to fuck or are we going to fight? Okay? Because it's one or the other.
Yeah.
When you make eye contact with another man. So, or with anyone really. So, yeah.
All right. Let's get back to the video. I know Allison stepped away for a moment, but
to bring this up. So in Robin Dunbar's book, Friends, which came out maybe 18 months ago, he's got this phenomenal study. So the next time that you're at a party, look at the angle of the feet that women have when they talk to each other, and look at the angle of the feet that men have.
Like what? What do you mean? What do you see?
Women will talk perpendicular, 180 degrees. They'll be pretty much straight on like this.
Oh.
Men talk at about 120 degrees.
Oh, that's fascinating.
So they blade.
Perfect.
And the reason being that this is a bit of sort of evolutionary bro psychology coming in, but I think it's true. If even try it, you can try it the next time that you're at a party. Just, you'll be stood sort of like this with a guy, just blading on, and just turn yourself so that you're actually straight onto them.
On.
And there's this just
dominance
rises up inside of you because
the other guy will pivot.
Will rise up. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Even in you, if you turn to be like 100% face on to that guy, right? You will feel that impulse towards like, are we about to fight? Like what's I think everybody is going to feel that. Every man who does this, the man who consciously changes his positioning to test this, is probably going to feel it, as well as the man that he's talking to is going to also feel it. I think that's like, I think it is something that
evolved.
Is extremely primal. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what is the point of this? Are we getting to the chase?
Well, yes. Okay, I'll stop interrupting.
Well,
we have to interrupt.
Really, the only time that two guys would do that is if they were going to fight or they were going to kiss. And if you don't intend on doing either of those things, and you just feel you're like, this feels right. There's something about that angle. It's like two north poles of a magnet.
Right. Yes. Oh, good example.
Divot away.
They don't want to. Yeah.
Dude, look at it. 120 degrees for men, 180 degrees for women. You can't not see it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's so good.
No, I will look for that.
And actually, this interpretation of that is not that women are not confrontational, but that women are always confronting each other.
I don't think that they're making the case that women are not confrontational.
Oh, okay.
I think I don't think that that's what they're doing.
No, but women do have, because it's kind of like the OkCupid data that they gathered on what profile photos worked for women versus what worked for men. And the ones that worked for women were, the woman was chin down, photo taken from above, gazing directly up into the camera. And that was what photo would get the most click-throughs. Whereas for men, it was, and she's smiling, showing interest in whoever she's looking at, right, directly at. And for men, it was, he's serious, unsmiling, and looking off to the side at something that's interesting. Yeah. And those were the ones that got the most click-throughs for women. And so I think this is like there is a thing about eye contact. And, even my husband, he said, when he was growing up, he had to train himself to look people directly in the eye. And he's a gigantic man, was an athlete. And he described his attitude as a child, which was, people noticed it, which was, I will share my toys with anyone, right? But if you take one of my toys, I'm going to push you off the fucking slide, right? And he did it several times, right? I'm just gonna like, no, you don't, like, he was like, welcome into my house. Don't fucking cross any lines, right? And because of that, I think he's always been leery of making direct eye contact with anyone that he does not want to have sex with. So.
All right, well, let's play some more of the video.
This could suggest a really cool difference between real and virtual. Virtual interactions are not embodied. Like we can see each other's upper bodies here, but I think what we would find, because I don't at all feel freaked out by your being face onto me on my but I don't at all feel like, oh, we've either got to kiss or fight, like, because we're virtual.
Well, we wait until we finish.
Well, you are pretty handsome, I must say. So again, something, we are embodied creatures. We're physical creatures. We're animals. We evolved outdoors. We had fights. We had hunts. We're physical creatures. And when we interact now virtually, we have only, it's like the white rice thing. We have just like a little few of the nutrients, but we're missing most of them. So anyway, on to boys and girls. Sorry, I'm taking too long on this, but the point is, when laptops and then especially smartphones come out, all the kids love them, all the kids gravitate, all the kids are on them. The boys head straight for video games and YouTube. The boys are spending more time on video games and YouTube and porn. The girls go straight for the visual social media platforms, especially Instagram, Tumblr, Pinterest in the early days. And so what are the effects?
I'm just pausing for the banana there. I don't know that this is anything that you guys haven't already observed, but I thought it was interesting that they were talking about it because, again, it does at least confirm that boys and girls are different.
No, girls are going for the, like he said, the communal thing, like the building friendships, right? The parasocial. Like my son, he plays video games online with his friends. Well, he made those friends at school, right? And he plays the video games with them, and it's always, shooting Fortnite and, I don't freaking know what he plays anymore. But it's a way to spend time with his friends, and they're never face to face, right? They're just shit talking each other over their microphones, right through their headsets, and honing their, I don't know whether you can say honing their
eye-hand coordination.
Well, okay, but unfortunately, having taken him out, my youngest, out for a drive, with his learner's permit, he was like, "Can't we replace the steering wheel with a game controller? A game controller?" An Xbox with a Nintendo Switch, because, or a Steam Deck or something, because he has no feel for it. He has no, and you can play Mario Kart all day long, right? Doesn't translate into using your feet to drive a car, right? So the way they interact online is exactly the way they interact in real life, right? Everybody makes fun of Tyler Jew, and who's not Jewish, but he does have a big nose, and also Fat Tyler shits on Cripple Tyler, and then everybody's like, "Dude, Fat Tyler, that's just going too far," right? And because the three Tylers, they have to differentiate them somehow, right? Yeah, no. So one has a big nose. Tyler. Yeah, one has a big nose, Tyler Jew. One is overweight, Fat Tyler, and the other one is Cripple Tyler because he has a knee brace. So,
okay,
yeah,
and thus the epic of Tyler, and Tyler ends. So let's continue.
All right.
Yeah,
girls are now on these platforms that are all about, I post a picture of me and my life, and then I wait for strangers to comment on it. And that's really, really bad for mental health. And that, I think, is why the girls, as soon as we hit 2012, 2013, the girls have very sharp elbows in the graphs, very hockey stick lines in the graphs. Boys, on the other hand, they're playing video games especially. Video games aren't making them depressed. Now, the boys are getting more depressed and anxious. They are roughly twice as depressed and anxious as they used to be, but it's more gradual. It starts a little sooner. It starts more like 2009, 2010, and it's more gradual. So I think what's happening, and what Zach Roush and I concluded in the book, and here we drew on Richard Reeves, is, for girls, boom, they get on social media, they get depressed. For boys, they've been withdrawing from the real world since the 70s and 80s. It used to be a male world. There used to be a patriarchy, but boy, has it been dismantled. And as everything shifts towards girls, and as schools get more and more structured towards girls and girls' needs and girls' ways of learning, and as we all freak out about gender gaps and we think that it's the girls we have to help in the 90s, which wasn't true. Girls had already passed boys. Boys are finding that they don't do well in school. They don't like school. But man, these video games are just getting better and better. And
so video game use is a reflection of depression, and
it's a symptom. It's a symptom.
So he does acknowledge that the so-called war, the war against the so-called patriarchy is the contributing factor for boys.
Yes. I've watched a whole bunch of Jonathan Haidt's stuff, and I would have been disappointed if he hadn't brought that
Well, that's
up.
good.
Right,
so far,
that.
nothing they've said has really required extensive comment. So
and it hasn't annoyed me at all. And I mean, that foot angle thing as well. I think, honestly, that 120-degree foot angle thing may also have to do with not only not causing confrontational feelings, but also being able to run away.
And actually surveying something other than the person in front of you. Which,
True.
honestly, if you think about it, is more, if you think about it, having your eyes on the person in front of you is an aggressive act and an acknowledgement of potential danger that they present to you. Like, you don't want to pay attention to anything else. So when two women approach each other, they want to keep their eye very, very steadily on each other. That's interesting. Because it's almost like an acknowledgement that the most threatening thing in the room for the women is each other. And this
I don't know about that because women have not evolved to develop that interpretation of that particular action, right? I mean,
well, it might not be physically threatening, but socially threatening. And it's
maybe
because the total focus is on the other woman. Like, I mean, I guess there could be another reason for it, but one of the reasons why you wouldn't want to go approach somebody directly is to be able to keep attention on the surroundings as well, right?
Well, I was gonna say the other thing too, and I don't think they're gonna go into this much in this video because I've watched this video already, but women have a broader peripheral vision, so they can look directly at someone but also see all the stuff around them. And the way that they
mention that too.
Their ability to discern like color is more precise too because they were gathering and stuff. But men, they have more telescopic vision, so I think the reason why they wouldn't stand, face to face is also because they're not. It's not because they feel threatened by the guy they're talking to, but they're also like they're scanning. They're scanning out. So I wouldn't like take this to mean anything. I'm just saying, like, people in the chat are, kind of like getting a little freaked out about it. It's like men and women are different. It's okay, but women the peripheral vision is wider, and so that I think that plays into it.
Don't take my fantasy away that women are secretly playing out some kind of death sports in their mind, as they face each other. Makes them more interesting.
Yeah. But anyway, let's look at a little bit more. I think there's a little bit.
And it's hard to approach a girl, but man, the pornography is getting better and better. And now you've got AI girlfriends, and soon AI girlfriends will be put into incredibly sexy robots. So what we're seeing is the progressive withdrawal of boys from effort in the real world that will pay off in the long run. And instead, boys' prodigious energy and their desires are being directed into a virtual world that generates nothing, absolutely nothing of any value in the real world.
Yeah, the audience is going to know what I'm going to bring up, but I'm going to do it again. It's my...
Okay, just a second here. First of all, what is it that they're going to get from interaction with the greater world? I'm sorry, women have made it very clear that the average man is uninteresting.
Not welcome.
Not welcome.
Not welcome.
You cannot get away from that. We are living in a society where women have said, we don't want the average man. We just don't want him. We don't want him because he's apparently, even if they don't want him because he isn't 6 foot, 6 figures, 7 inches, 7-pack, whatever, 8-pack, that kind of thing. 6, 7, 8 keeps going up.
No. 6, 6, 6, 6.
No, it's going up, Karen. It's going up. The baseline goes up periodically. It's expectation inflation. But I mean, even if he isn't that, they also apparently justify this by saying that the average man has an average mentality and an average understanding of, emotion and an average amount of wisdom. And they don't want that either. They don't want the average man's personality. They don't want the average man's looks. They don't want the average man's income. They do not want the average man. So what is it that you're saying that the average men are going to get at the end of the day by interacting with this culture? Well, games and a sex bot. This is what's annoying. It's like, well, they're opting out of society. Well, if we want a
society made it clear that they're not welcome. They're not welcome. You know, if you don't succeed, if you're not 6666 or better, right? Then you don't get any rewards. You don't get respect. You don't get a woman. You don't get your own kids. You don't get money. Okay.
You get money, but that's the point. Like,
but if you do get that, you've stolen it from women.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. So there's that element of if you are successful, you've taken it from women. But the other thing is that if a man is successful, he has to be in a very high position, and there's no way to get around it. The average expectations of women are so high, and it doesn't matter if they deflect it onto the average personality of men. Well, that's still not wanting the average.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and it's just a situation where what is the average man going to get? What does he think? Not even what is he going to get or what he could possibly get, because maybe there's a situation. You know, maybe he might find someone, and that's the hope, right? But look at what women are saying. Look at the overwhelming message towards men in our society, coming from TikTok, coming from YouTube channels like Bryony and Manifestel and Hannah Cox. See the messages. They're basically saying that men are unlovable just as they are. That not only do men have to check off all of these boxes, and if they don't, they're a deadbeat. They aren't ultimately unlovable as they are. Who the hell thinks of that? Like, at the end of the day, your reward is a woman who only is in your life because you are all of these superficial things and actually doesn't consider you a person. That's what the overwhelming message that men are getting from women from TikTok.
You're not a person, you're a performance.
Yeah, you're not a person, you're a performance. You are a utility in my life. That's the overwhelming message men are getting. I totally get it. Men look at that and they say, so my reward at the end of the day is a woman who's only interested in me because of my money, and who's only interested in me because of the looks that I will eventually lose, who's only interested in me because of my athleticism, which again, I will eventually lose, who's only interested in me because of, I don't know, like
how I can help her climb the social ladder.
Yeah, like all of these, and has no actual interest in me. Women in this society do not present the idea that love is on the table, that love, companionship, and that kind of emotional intimacy is on the table when it comes to relationships. And it may be that the women on TikTok, the women who are creating this overwhelming voice in the room, like the loudest, they're completely out to lunch. It could be, but they are the loudest voice in the room. So men are getting this perception. They come into the room and women are saying, you are unlovable. You will never be loved. I will take your money and I will tolerate your presence until such time as I can take your money and kick you the fuck out of my life. And what this is, the overwhelming message. That's not something.
And then I'll blame you for it too.
Yeah. And then I'll blame you for it. And again, it may not be that the average woman is actually like that or actually would do that, but that is the overwhelming message in the room now. Is that a message that men want to buy into? The answer is no. The answer is there is no apparent reward to participating in this society except for money, and the reward that you get for getting money for young men that is games and eventually a sex bot. So you better, you can be like, oh, I can't believe they're just going after this reward. Well, you should thank God it exists because men are still invested in the system because of it, and we need that.
Yeah.
There's no compromise on that issue. We need young men to be invested in the system, or we're all done for. Yeah. So you should be damn glad that there are sexy AI bots coming off the factory floor in like 5 years.
So there's young men who are like looking to save for that shit.
Yeah, and there's young men who's willing to work for that and looking to save for that. You should be damn glad. You should be kissing the ass of the person who invented that shit, because that's
for game subscriptions.
Men still invested. And if you think that is an option, keeping men invested in our society, I suggest you look at what men do. Who are the primary, the linemen, electricity, sewer, utilities,
water.
Who is moving the goods in our society? I suggest you look at who
making the goods,
the absolutely essential work that you cannot not do for a society to run. Look at that and tell me that it matters. That men are not being incentivized in the way that you want. What matters is that they still have some incentive in the system. Give them the AI sex bots, give them the games if you want women to just turn their nose up at the average man. That's the system. This is the black and white truth of it.
And what's frustrating too for me is that the average woman thinks that she's like, she may be a solid 6 when she's dolled up, but she deserves that 8.5 and nothing less. Right. And it's like, this is why it's 66666. The solid 6 who demands 6 feet, 6 inches, a 6-pack, and 6 figures. See how that works?
All right. Let's play a little bit more, and then I'll do the super chats and stuff at the end.
Done. Mm-hmm. So me and William think that a really phenomenal, and this, you don't even need to wait for the sex robot thing or the in-person robot. You could do this with Apple's VR headset if it was sufficiently well trained on a good data set. So you have a virtual interaction with a woman, like a computer game. And in this virtual interaction, the avatar is able to see your movements. They can hear what you're saying. They use natural language processing to work out the intonation, and you know, they're able to go back and forth, and they can, you know, you can program in shit like consent, and you can program shit in like flirting, and I want to you know, increase the difficulty, the disagreeability of this girl. I want her to make me work out, and you level up and level up and level up. And if you can form that on actual human psychology, you can have guys practice playing the video game in the safety of their own home, and then go and deploy this in the real world. It's like, you know, Tonal, one of these like at-home gym things. It's like, or Wii Sports, right? Like, you know, you're playing.
All right, I'm just that is kind of a. I think it's funny because it's
make a
it's such a it's
flex for men's libidinous muscles.
Yeah, I think it's funny. It's very much a solution that a man would come up with, right? It's designed like it's totally, it is. But the funny, so I'm all about this. Okay, I'm all for this. Chris Williamson, I want you guys to make it happen. But here's what you're gonna have to do. You're gonna have to get these fucking activist women out of the gaming industry, and then we're good to go, because they will stop this. Like Anita Sarkeesian would be all over it. So we just gotta get the activists out of the industry. That's all.
Landscape, and then we can make this happen. Everything we need to make. But you've already changed the entire cultural landscape. Like, that's the thing with. That's why I'm like, well, we can discuss repealing the 19th, but in order to repeal the 19th, women have to vote to repeal the 19th. Which means we've changed the entire cultural landscape. So it's right back on ground up change in people's attitudes towards men and women. Like,
it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. It'll take a zombie apocalypse, but one day, 19's out the window.
It'll take the end of voting period, but one day, no more democracy. Then women don't have a vote. Oh, good Lord. Okay.
If nobody has a vote, then women also don't have a vote. So I guess I'll take it.
Well, you know, that's the whole message of Pandora's box. Okay, I'm sorry. The Greeks warned us. They warned us. They saw it coming.
I'm just wondering.
Women were gonna fuck everything up by letting out a monster that could not be contained again.
I wonder how you are, if you do this like relationship or dating Bowflex, so you're learning to manage dating. And honestly, Chris, you are heading into some very dangerous territory, because the pickup artists basically did something very similar to what you're suggesting, and they got slammed.
And
you will
charged with a crime.
You will be presented as being some kind of sexual assaulter for creating something like this, some sort of predator. But let's say we did it. Let's say we did it.
He's literally advocating the rape of virtual women.
Yeah. But let's say but also he's pretending like women aren't all special snowflakes, that appealing to women is something that you can actually learn.
There's a code you can crack.
But here's the question. Like, when you give men this, why would they not just want whatever they're interacting with just to go the full thing, just all the way? So
just
you
marry it.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, you can have all of this. You can have this simulation, and then at the end, what you get is an AI girlfriend, sex bot.
Yeah, you marry the simulation.
Yeah, exactly. Like, why do they have to interact with women who, right out of the gate, say that they are incapable, or present the notion that they're incapable of appreciating a man as a companion? Like, that's what it comes down to, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, why would you go for the real thing if the real thing, even after you've honed your skills, even after you know, could still take your freaking money, half your money, take your kids, take your house.
What differentiates, like, an AI sex bot really isn't going to give true love or intimacy to a man. Like, it's going to give the simulacra of that, but neither is apparently the modern average woman. So, like, so what, why would you go out, and they probably won't even give a consistent simulacra of that. Like,
well, the whole point is that with this AI virtual VR headset thing, right, is that you can program the woman to behave in different ways. And so, but, you know, like, I'm sorry, but I'm going to say it again. Like, the thousands of hours that my son played Mario Kart did not prepare him from getting behind the wheel of an actual motor vehicle. It didn't. Right? He actually needed to get in the car, feel what the car did, and it's like most of it is feeling. It's not just looking. Most of it is feeling the car move and feeling all of that stuff. Right? You don't feel it, even if you got a rumble pack or whatever it was called on your controller. You don't feel what's happening when even if you're using the steering wheel one with the gas pedals at the arcade. You don't feel it, and if you don't feel it, it's always kind of a shock to your system when the car starts moving, and when it stops and all of that. Right? So.
Yeah.
Unless you're programmed to be a passenger, which apparently all of my entire family is programmed as. All
right. So is there anything?
No, I think that's it. I think that's the general gist. I mean,
okay.
Yeah.
Right. So, I think that unless you're going to address the fact that women are making it very clear that emotional intimacy and seeing men as companions is not on the table, that those are the loudest voices in the room, doesn't mean I'm not saying that that's the average woman, but those are the loudest voices in the room giving impressions to young men, right? That they're just, men are unlovable. Until you address that, I suggest that we give whatever men want in the absence of that. If we want to be in a situation where women are just not going to love men and just do not want to have relationships with them, then I guess we just become okay with games and AI sex bots. Because the alternative is that we have nothing to incentivize men with. And their participation is absolutely critical to the continued running of our society. And although this gamified dating is a very interesting concept, again, until men get the impression that the average woman is capable of loving them, they probably will just go for the simulation of being loved rather than the reality of being unlovable. Okay? There you go.
Yeah.
All right, so
because the simulation, even if it starts being really bitchy and demanding and a whore, you can actually recalibrate it.
Okay, so I just want to remind everyone after the show is we've moved on. You can send us a message if you have anything that you want to comment on at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. I'm guessing I should probably check to make sure we have any thank yous. And if you want to support the show, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/support. Let me just double check to see if anything slipped through.
It's a good idea.
Yeah. Looks like we got something. All right. Craig C gives us $25. Thank you, Craig C.
Thank you.
Appreciated.
Thank you. Come again.
I believe that's it for now. So once again, if you want to join Craig C and our very generous supporters, please go to feedthebadger.com/support to make sure we can do these shows, well, quite a bit next month and for until this we see some movement on people recognizing what actually needs to change, which is that we need to start recognizing that men are lovable, or at least capable of being loved. Anyway, so feedthebadger.com/support to support the show, and feedthebadger.com/justthetip to send us a tip and a message. All right, back to you, Brian.
All right, well, I got a Super Chow and a Super Chat. So Great Indoors just gave us $5 and says Karen's son should take up competitive sim racing like iRacing or Assetto Corsa with a steering wheel, or maybe something more casual like Bean and G to get him more used to different interfaces than a gamepad. Okay, that was the Super Chow, and then I got a Super Chat from Xeranx for $5, and he says, interesting thing is males will face each other if there's concern for the other being steady, then we'll go into 120 degrees ready to drop back if things change. All right, well, thank you for the Super Chat and Super Chow. We're gonna be heading to the patron show now, so if you guys want to join us there, you have to become a badger yourself by going to feedthebadger.com/subscribe. $5 a month will get you into the Discord, where you'll be able to participate in all of the additional content. Yeah, I guess that's it. We're gonna go there now and do some, I don't know, messing around with Opus. So if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. Thank you, Karen, for coming on, and please share this video, because sharing is caring. Thank you so much for coming on today's episode of the Rantzerker, and we'll talk to you all in the next one.
Are machines, dude. Okay, they are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.